trophy the Patriots won, and I want to know if he told them about that before or after he retired.
Is that better or worse than losing one of your Super Bowl rings to Vladimir Putin? That's my question.
I mean, the trophy doesn't belong to Gronk. The ring did belong to Putin.
It's a fair point.
Quote, I'm Kevin Dûrant. You know who I am. Said Kevin Dûrant when talking about the Warriors matchup with the Clippers and being guarded by Patrick Beverley. Let's watch some of what he had to say.
They're playing a gimmick defense, which has been working, top blocking everything on the perimeters. When I get the ball in my spots, you know, I got a pest, Patrick Beverley, who was up underneath me. Well, I could definitely shoot over top and score every time if it's a one-on-one situation. But we got a guy that's dropping and helping, and then we got another guy that's just sitting on me, waiting for me to dribble the basketball. If I put the basketball on the floor, I can probably make 43% of my shots if I shoot them like that. But that's not really going to do nothing for us with the outcome of the game, you know. Because I'm not going to get in the way of the game because, you know, I want to have a little back and forth with Patrick Beverley. I'm Kevin Dûrant. You know who I am. Y'all know who I am.
Pablo, what'd you make of this response?
We do know who he is. And he should know that he doesn't need to do all of that to get the media kind of on his side. We, if I may speak royally for the media, we just basically love it when you remember our name, when you give us the time of day. And he was mostly in trouble when he wasn't answering questions. To be a basketball monologuing savant is beyond the call of duty, but also appreciated.
I was saying, do you think he's trying to be on our side, though?
Well, that's what happened.
I mean, I don't know if that, we're not on his side. We just thought that was a really good answer. We'll turn on him pretty quickly. Like, it was pretty in-depth, and you got a lot of insight into his mindset as to what it is that the Clippers were doing against him and what gets him to move the ball and stuff like that. The thing that's interesting to me about this, though, is the Warriors, for so long, when they got him, were trying to shake him out of the ISO ball they've been playing in Oklahoma City, and it seems like that took, because he's getting the ball in these positions, and he's looking at it, and he's like, okay, well, how can I get the ball to other people? Because, yeah, I can make this 43% of the time, but is that what we really want?
And that's what's complicated now, because Steve Kerr, as he was giving that monologue, also had a suggestion for what Kevin Dûrant should do. And Kevin Dûrant says, I don't need to shoot 20, 30 times a game when I'm being played by Patrick Beverley like that. Steve Kerr says he wants Kevin Dûrant to shoot 20 or 30 times a game. And so there does seem to be, as you say, a somewhat ironic basketball conflict between KD and his coaching staff, even as he sounds quite enlightened.
Yeah, I mean, this just needs to end, right? Is that the conclusion that we need to draw? Like, when you start dealing with a situation with people and something like that, reverse places in the argument and still disagree, it's just over.
Next quote. And speaking to Rich, I think there's certainly an openness to it. Said New Orleans Pelicans GM David Griffin about the possibility of getting Anthony Davis to stay in New Orleans. Let's watch.
I'm extremely optimistic relative to the opportunity that lies ahead of us in the form of Anthony Davis. We have a very long, successful history together with Clutch Sports. Rich Paul and I have spoken about Anthony, and I think we're both excited about what we could potentially build here. You are either all the way in or you are all the way out.
Bo, is it reasonable to think that David Griffin can get Davis to actually stay?
I mean, the ending there was pretty ugly, but we have also seen other situations where things have gotten ugly between franchise players and those franchises, and they turned around. Kobe Bryant famously asked to be traded in 2007. Akeem Olajuwon famously asked to be traded in 1992 after they accused him of faking an injury. Like, that one got really bad. But this one seems like it has to be over. It seems like it's got to be done. It's hard for me to imagine the set of circumstances where not only do you need Anthony Davis to come back, but you also need him basically to sign a $40 million a year contract extension. You can offer it, but if he wanted to take it, I don't think we would have been where we were a couple of months ago.
I think it is going to be over between the team and Anthony Davis, but this does seem like a smart thing to say publicly, because Anthony Davis's trade value, because everybody assumes he has no desire to stay there, has been lowered. So David Griffin, a smart guy, trying to maybe boost that. He also might be trying to repair the relationship between the city and Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis right now is looking like a villain. And so how do you do that? Maybe you pin it on the old regime, which, by the way, was incompetent compared to David Griffin.
Or maybe you got to entertain the possibility maybe this guy's on your roster at the start of the season. Like, the one thing I found to be kind of comical about the way that people are like, well, just don't play him until you trade him. Well, what happens if this offseason comes, this summer comes, and you don't get the offer that you want for him? Are you then going to sell low? You could have sold low before. No. And the way that the the argument's been made, you're going to keep on holding on to him until you can get something better. Does that raise the possibility that they get stuck with him? I don't think any of us have any idea how this ends.
But I trust him.
Quote, Ben Simmons is a great player in transition. Once you get him into half court, he's average. Said Jared Dudley. This morning, Ben Simmons responded to those comments by saying, quote, it's coming from Jared Dudley. Come on. Pablo, is Dudley wrong?
I love this. Jared Dudley is right. Jared Dudley did hold Ben Simmons to 2 points in 22 possessions before sitting out game 2 because he's injured, but not so injured as to prevent him from giving us these takes. And the take is right. The issue, though, is that Ben Simmons defensively is a really good player when he wants to be. So can Ben Simmons be a 1.5-way player because he cannot do work in the half court? That's my hope as someone rooting for
That's
the
what I was
Sixers.
about to say, because for some inexplicable reason, you're still rooting for a general manager who doesn't even work there. There's nothing nerdier than rooting for a team because of the general manager. Anyway, Simmons can play fantastic defense. I think we know that. I mean, he can play elite defense on 4 different positions. It is an underrated part of his game, and it's very nice of you to point that out. But you know damn well that ain't got nothing to do with what Jared Dudley was talking about, right? The issue is this. He can't shoot. And last game, they managed to figure out what to do with him in spite of the fact that he cannot shoot. Now it's time to see the adjustment that Kenny Atkinson makes for the Nets to account for the fact that Ben Simmons simply can't shoot.
Right. No, what they did in game 2 was have Ben Simmons attack the rim just like that. Have him attack the rim offensively, get in transition where they can do unstructured basketball things, use the hand that he actually uses to do things, which is the right, and avoid him from not just exposing himself as someone who can't shoot, but someone who won't shoot. And that is always going to be near fatal when it comes to the playoffs, and they don't fear you at all in that half-court setting.
You know how I could summarize everything that you just said?
How?
Ben Simmons is a great player in transition, and once you get him into the half court, he's average. That's kind of what it. I mean, that's
Jared
in the end.
Dudley's right.
And you can't do it like in postseason basketball. You can't do this if you can't play in the half court. But I mean, how far does this go for the Sixers? Like, is this a series that we are sure they're going to get through? This is a series they certainly should be able to get through. But are we sure that they're going to be able to beat the Nets?
I am not sure, because as much as Ben Simmons can help stop D'Angelo Russell and help curb that 3-headed monster of a backcourt, which they have, game 2 showed that, dude, I don't know if they can score 51 points in the third quarter every game.
No, and it's a weight class issue for Joel Embiid against a guy like Jared Allen, right? But you could pack it in on Embiid.